Well, if it wasn't enough that the iconic actor Robert Downey Jr., who basically personified Iron Man, is now coming back to the MCU as Dr. Doom, if that wasn't already enough to get you pretty interested in what is going to happen, let us intrigue you a little bit more today as we have we'll call it a rumor for now, but it's a report that is talking about the Scarlet Witch returning in Avengers Doomsday. Now, we've been talking a lot about the Scarlet Witch returning, especially since we just got Agatha all along. And Marvel definitely was not shy about using her name. They explained that Billy is the son of the Scarlet Witch, and they did a really good job at showing us that he has a lot of her powers, specifically the reality warping and bending powers. Heck, at one point in time in the show, Billy asks, "Is the Scarlet Witch really dead?" And Agatha says, "Yes, no, maybe." And Marvel knew what they were doing. They were intentionally trying to keep it very, very vague. But if the Scarlet Witch was done, they'd probably just put a nail in that coffin. But I think most of us know that she's not done. And as it turns out, Marvel Studios might have plans to put her together with Dr. Doom. And if you're asking, are they going to team up in a superhero way, or are they going to team up in a romantic way, or both? Keep in mind, Marvel did do this in the comics, where the Scarlet Witch and Doom were actually on track to get married. However, there is a little bit of a twist to that. However, it is a story arc that does involve her two sons being reincarnated and going out to look for her. It also does involve multiple teams trying to go up against Dr. Doom, including the Avengers and the X-Men. If you're interested in finding out the full story, we're probably going to cover it soon, as we're going to start diving deep into some comic stories to explain what's going on in the MCU in some future videos. But if you don't want to wait, you can read the story of the Children's Crusade, which is something that I think we are experiencing in the MCU right now. But let's first go over this report. This report is coming from Grace Randolph from Beyond the Trailer. She's been hit and miss on scoops in the past, but the reason we're going over this today is because I have heard from insiders the same thing that she is reporting today. This is what she said, and I quote, "Wanda being alive and with Doom was supposed to be a major reveal, but it seems that focus has shifted," which somewhat negates the Children's Crusade storyline. Jack Schaefer needs to stick around to address this. There's a bit of a mess. The MCU's Magic Corner may have a smaller audience, so it doesn't get the same priority, but for comic fans, it's frustrating. End quote. Now, first of all, if you're not sure who Jack Schaefer is, she is the creator and director of Agatha All Along. One of the directors, Rachel Goldberg and Ganja Montero, directed other episodes as well. But she created the show and was involved with every single step of the writing process. So basically what Grace Randolph is saying here is that Jack Schaefer basically needs to help Marvel Studios out with the direction of magic in the MCU, since she has handled this very well so far. She did Agatha All Along, which is really well received by a lot of fans, not all, but a lot of fans, but she also created WandaVision as well and did a really great job with Wanda. Now, what I heard before from some insiders, and there were multiple that I heard from, was pretty similar to what Grace Randolph is talking about. But with what Grace Randolph said, it seems now like the focus might not be so much about a romantic relationship with Dr. Doom, but rather the two of them possibly teaming up. And I know for a lot of people that might rub you the wrong way at first. For those frustrated that the Scarlet Witch was a villain in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, it might frustrate you even more to hear that she could be a possible villain in Avengers Doomsday. However, Wanda isn't always necessarily the best person in the comics. A lot of people can think about House of M, No More Mutants. And they actually did a pretty decent job of showcasing some of these stories in the MCU. For example, in the comics, when Wanda loses her children, that's when things start to get really bad. Well, that's exactly what happened in the MCU. She lost her children and she kind of went mad. Also, the Darkhold was a big part of that as well, but she kind of went mad trying to get them back, willing to kill pretty much anyone who got in her way, including some teenagers, or at least one, America Chavez. So it wasn't totally off from some things that we've seen in the comics. But I also do share your frustration with Wanda being a villain. I would much rather her be a hero, and I do think that we are building to that. Because if Wanda and Dr. Doom team up in the comics, I'm pretty sure that it's going to be because Dr. Doom is presenting himself like he is trying to save the multiverse. And again, in the comics, that is something that he sets out to actually do, not just simply pretend, but he does indeed set out to try and save the multiverse from being destroyed. Now, where things take a turn is when he realizes that that's not possible. And then he basically decides to just save something, at least one remnant of the multiverse, and that ends up being Battleworld. But his intentions to save the multiverse are true in the comics, so I'm assuming there's going to be somewhat of that plot going on in Doomsday, where he could convince the Scarlet Witch to join his cause because of her multiverse travel experience. Now, she didn't do it herself, but she did dreamwalk. And she did read the entirety of the Darkhold, so she probably has a lot of knowledge there. And not to mention, she probably caused some incursions to happen. I mean, after all, she did kill the Illuminati in one universe, and who knows what happened in other universes. The effect of her dreamwalking there, and Doctor Strange and them ending up there as well. So if she is wanting to be good again, she might want to try and clean up the mess that she caused, which could also push her to join Dr. Doom if he is preaching that he wants to save the multiverse. So there are a lot of ways to do this. And honestly, the relationship with her and Dr. Doom being romantically involved is a way to do it as well. Now, like I mentioned, there is kind of a twist in the comics when it comes to Dr. Doom and the Scarlet Witch being engaged. The twist is the Scarlet Witch doesn't actually remember anything about her past. Now, this is after a lot of the big things went down in the comics, like Wanda willing her children into existence, losing them, having a mental breakdown, killing some of the Avengers, causing House of M to happen. After all this, she essentially just leaves, and they find her with Dr. Doom, not having any of her memories. And it's actually her son Wiccan that finds her. Like I said, it's a long, complicated story, but ultimately the Avengers and a lot of characters like Magneto and Wonder Man and Spider-Man, they all show up to essentially take down Dr. Doom. But remember, Dr. Doom is an incredibly powerful sorcerer, one of the strongest in Marvel Comics, and he manages to defeat them. But here is what I would call the biggest twist of everything. Dr. Doom actually does love the Scarlet Witch, and the Scarlet Witch actually does love Dr. Doom. In fact, when it comes down to it at the end, even after a lot of stuff goes down, when Doom is defeating the Avengers and he's punished Wiccan very brutally, when a lot of this happens, even after it, Wanda still goes back to Doom, and Doom is like, "You've come back to me." And she says, "Of course, but I'm afraid things are a little bit more complicated than before." And Doom jokes, "More complicated than the Avengers invading Latveria on what was supposed to be our wedding day." And she's like, "Yeah, let's put it this way. Next time we're gonna get married, let's go elope." So she like legit loves him. He loves her, but ultimately they do not end up together. Dr. Doom ends up getting an ultimate power, what's called the life force, and basically he refuses to give it up, which ultimately leads to a lot of bad things and him and the Scarlet Witch not being together. It's a crazy story involving the Avengers, the X-Men, and the Young Avengers. And really what leads to this is Tommy and Billy, reincarnated, realize that they're brothers. In fact, they look just like each other, and they're like, whoa. And they start to realize, they're like, think about it. We look exactly like each other. I have the powers of the Scarlet Witch. You have the powers of the Scarlet Witch's brother, Quicksilver. So they kind of put it together, and in this story, they do reunite with their mother, which ultimately I think is where we are leading in the MCU. So although there are a lot of stories and a lot of paths they can go down in Doomsday, with the Scarlet Witch and Doom being on the same side at first, they could still go down the romantic storyline, which still could be kind of gnarly because, I mean, it's Robert Downey Jr., so he should, in theory, look just like Tony Stark. So that would be a pretty interesting one if the Scarlet Witch, who knew Tony Stark very well, fell in love with Doom, who looks just like Tony Stark. But we'll have to wait and see. But either way, it looks like the Scarlet Witch is going to be returning in Avengers Doomsday and could possibly be working with Dr. Doom. So please go ahead and let me know your thoughts about that in the comments down below. Please don't forget to like this video and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the latest MCU news, rumors, and leaks. You can also find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And as always, thank you all so much for watching. Woof woof.